Hi guys, it's Brian from the Knightime project here. So in the last video, I said that I was going to walk you through how I deconstruct a reference track, and I am going to do that, but there are a couple of things that I need to mention. Let me explain to you how I deal with reference tracks. When I'm in this position of wanting to analyze reference tracks, I don't just analyze one at a time. I'll go onto YouTube and I'll find about 5 or 6 tracks that I really like the sound of, and then I'll immediately bring them into the DAW and record them in there. But when I record them, I don't record them with the track name. I record them as reference 1, reference 2, reference 3, and so on and so forth. All we're looking for is the song structure. How does the song start and end? Where, if there is a melody in it, where it appears within the track, what the percussion's doing, the way the bass is interacting with the lower end elements, where the sound effects are, what the sound effects are doing, that sort of thing. The reference that I have, I've tried to search for it on SoundHound and Shazam, and I can't find it. And it would be unfair on the composer for me to play the track to you while we're going through this. That's not something that I want to do, and it's not fair on the composer. But the other thing that I thought was that it would be actually a very good exercise for you to go through this process with me. So the music that I'm focusing on for now is hybrid orchestral instrumental music. But if it's not the kind of music that you're doing, you can still follow the basic core lessons from this video. You can still follow it even though the track isn't of that particular genre. So that's what I thought would be a good idea. Let's make this interactive as opposed to me just talking you through it. You can just sit down and just watch it, but it might be a good idea to work along with me, have the video playing on your tablet or on your phone while you're also in your DAW following along to what I'm going to be showing you. So let's start. Go onto YouTube and type in whatever it is that whatever kind of music that you want to analyze. So if it is epic hybrid orchestral music, then type that in. If it's trailer music, type that in. If it's hybrid cyberpunk 80s music or whatever, type that in. Find a track that you really like the sound of. Get it into your DAW, take the output from your phone or your tablet, put it into your audio interface, get it into your DAW, and once it's in the DAW, come back to the video and we'll then start the breakdown. Okay, you're back. So you have your track and it's in your DAW. So for me, this is the reference number 6. Now, I had this track probably last year at some point during lockdown, not listening to it over and over again because I've been working on other stuff. So you've got your reference in your DAW. The first thing that you want to be doing is you want to be setting the tempo of the piece. So I have an app and it's called HS Tempo, but there are many apps that would, you can type in metronome on Google Play or on iOS, on the iOS store, and you'll find loads of them. So the first thing you need to do is work out what the tempo of this track is so that you can then line it up with your metronome inside your DAW. That's your first port of call. So find a metronome, get your track lined up, and when you've finished, come back. Okay, you're back. You've got your tempo set. Fantastic. So for me, this track is at a tempo of 160 BPM. The next thing that you want to be looking at is the song structure. You want to find out where for things like, and you can name these however you want. So for me, I name them such as intro, pre, A section, B section, break or rest, A section variation 1, A section variation 2, end. So it's all tempo mapped. I'm going to now go in and I'm going to have a listen and I'm going to work out the different sections, which will actually be quite helpful for you when you come to structure your own track. I'll come back in a second and you can see what it is and then you can apply that to your track. Okay, you're back. Right, okay, so this is how I have broken this particular track down. So we have an intro here, we have a rest, we have the A section, we have another rest, we have a B section, we have another rest, then we have a B section variation 1, another rest, then we have here, this is the build. Now this is what I'm saying about labeling things however you want. Now I've called this build pre to end with another rest, and then you have a gentle true ending. When it comes to your A and B section, what this relates to really is what in particular the piece of music is doing at that particular moment in time. This could relate to a harmonic development or a harmonic structure. This can relate to a melodic element or a melodic structure. So you can see here that this A section is just called that. But you have a B section and you have a B section variation 1. Now for me, this relates more specifically to the way that the melody is, or the melody appears within the track and what it's actually doing, as well as telling me that this B section variation 1 is more or less a build on this B section. Now, I was just about to shoot myself in the foot and say that the B section has nothing to do with the A section. That's completely incorrect. The A section will usually outline the fundamental chord structure of the reference. So, for example, it would dictate its chord sequence, its rhythm, perhaps a loose melody, present basic instrumentation, amongst other things. The B section builds on the outline of the A section, whilst the variation, and in this case it's B section variation 1, builds on the previous section. So, for example, if there's an A section variation 1, it's building on the previous A section. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's get back to the video. So you can label your sections as however you want to. This is going to be like kind of like a graphical guide for you in terms of this particular song structure, things that you can change as you're working through the track. So I can see from here that this track is 2 minutes and 9 seconds. So what I might want to do when I come to do this track, I might actually, because 2 minutes 9 seconds is relatively short, I might want to push it to 3 minutes. So in which case I might have an A section, and then I might have an A section variation 1. I might take this rest out, and I might have these two parts going like an A section and A section 1, which means you can lengthen the track. But if you know roughly the kind of like sections you're kind of like dealing with, it will help you in terms of fleshing out a new composition, especially if you know what your sections are. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a good listen through the track, and I'm going to start making notes. So what I'll do is I'm going to add the track, I'm going to call them notes, and then I'm going to count, let's do 7. 7 seems to be about the rough sort of number. So I've got 7 lanes of notes open here. The things I'm going to be looking for in my notes are where the melody is, not what the melody is, but just where the melody is, if there is one. What the general feel of the track is it sad, is it uplifting, is it menacing? I want to make notes about what the instruments are actually doing. So for example, there might be string ostinatos in there that do a rise and a fall. I will put those in the breakdowns of the individual instruments as well. But for the time being, let me just have a listen and I'll go through the notes with you. And that's what you want to be doing as well. You want to listen through your track and make some notes. They can be as general or as detailed as you want them to be. Anything that's going to help you kind of formulate, because even sitting down with a template, it's still hard to come up with an idea. So you can make the notes as detailed as you want. So I'm going to go and have a listen through to the track, and then when I've had a listen, I'll come back and I'll let you know what the notes actually say. Okay, you're back. And hopefully you've made your notes. I'm going to show you the notes that I've made on here for this track. So yeah, seven lanes of notes. All these are just blank audio files. And this is what I mean when I say graphical deconstruction. So all you're doing, this is Studio One. So in Studio One, you can double click anywhere within the track lane, and I can split that there, for example, split that there, get rid of that and get rid of that. And then I can right click, and then I can label these notes. And this is what I've done all the way through the track. I don't know how you do that in other DAWs, but there should be a simple way of being able to label just a blank MIDI region of emptiness. There should be a way for you to be able to do that. That's all I've done. So you'll see by the end what I mean by when I say graphical template, because what you'll end up with is lots of blank MIDI regions in audio files that look like this, but they're going to be colorized. We'll obviously have a look at that at the end. So let's go through these notes. So the first thing that I noticed with this, it sounds like there's a very quiet otherworld soundscape, atonal in the mix. So atonal obviously is, we have something tonal, it obviously has a tone. Atonal means it can be ambiguous and quite vague. So like a drone, but a drone without any kind of like tonal elements in it. So that's the first thing that I picked out on here. And this length is relating to, this is 4 bars. And this is relatively important in terms of breaking your track down. Most of the music, in fact, all of the music that I analyze, they're all tempo based and the tempo doesn't change. So you can see here that what I've done is I've labeled this here, but I haven't actually dragged it all the way out, all the way through. I've just left it as is. This runs for 4 bars and then there's another 4 bars and it more or less does the same thing. You can see by the waveform that there isn't much of a change between this one and this one. It's kind of the same. However, as we get into bar 12, and I'm labeling this because the way that I do it is when I put the reference in, I always start it off roughly around about 4. So it gives me a bit of counting room when I'm starting to write. Then we get to bar 12. So from bar 12, I've got here that the strings make a gentle volume rise to the end of the bar. The cello sustain 2 plays in the same range as the violin. You can make, like I said, you can make these as cryptic as you want or as vague as you want. That's just what I've noticed within this particular part here. As we move on to bar 16, the piano single note hits on each bar. Obviously you go to 1, 2, 3, 4. Then there's a rest. This is when it starts to get interesting. So first notes, the viola staccato is a 5th above the root of the starting cello ostinato. Percussion starts the ostinato emphasis on accented notes. See color emphasis in toms below. So when I put the toms in, I'll be emphasizing those. The string ensemble holds the basic chords in first inversion. The string ostinato panning is off. Cello are centered. Viola is off to the right. So when I was listening to this, this is a particular thing that I noticed. Now, usually the cello are kind of with the double basses off to the right. First violins and the second violins, let's say that the stereo field goes from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 9 o'clock being hard left, 3 o'clock being hard right. First violins are usually around about 10, 11 o'clock with the seconds. The violas are usually at 12, give or take. And the cello and the violas are usually around about 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock. They're usually about here. So I'm looking, I mean, they're usually about here. So it's quite unusual to find that the cello here are actually centered. But this is the good thing about listening to other pieces of music, because from an orchestral point of view, why not put the cello in the middle? Because the cello and the basses are actually bass instruments. So there's no, and I know that some orchestrators, when they orchestrate, they will actually put the cello and the basses dead in the center. They wouldn't have them off bass heavy to the right. But you know, nothing's cast in stone. This is what I'm picking up every time I analyze a piece of music. Nothing's cast in stone. You can make it really strict if you wish, you don't have to, but at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, so yeah. And then the string ensemble is very quiet, and I've put here that there's no need to be. So when I come to work on this track, I can actually change that. We've got a weaker massive taiko hit in light blue. So when I do that, I'll be putting that in light blue. And the percussion colors are very loose. Just shows constant change in programming. So what this means is that when I come to do the percussion, all it means is that I'll change the colors slightly just so that I can see graphically where the hits are, what the hits are doing. You don't have to follow them. I just like to see what the percussion is doing, because the percussion, especially in hybrid orchestral music, a lot of people get tripped up on the percussion. I get tripped up on the percussion all the time. So I make things as detailed as I possibly can. Everything that I hear, I make it as detailed as I can, just so that I can hear what's going on. The rest, it continues. I won't go through it all now, because you'll be able to see when because the template is available. If you just click in the description down below, I've made the template available for you to actually have a look at. But it's in a graphical form, it's in Excel. So you can have a look at it there and see what they're all doing. But essentially, that's what I've done, is I've made notes all the way through. Let's just have a look at this very end. What does this say at the end? Because you'll notice that I haven't put anything at on the true ending. Section holds the root note, violin staccato upward chord outlines the 3-note movement, horn holds the root note at C3, bass holds the root, slight chord movement in trombones and string ensembles in bar 3. Really deep analysis. You just have to listen over and over and over again. This is another thing that springs to mind. This track here I haven't set the tempo, but I'm going to set it to 160. If you come across a section that you find, for example, you really are struggling to work out what the piece is doing, slow it down. If the tempo is set, depending on your DAW, again, Studio One allows you to do this. If the tempo is set, if I slow this down now to 120, I can play this back at 120 BPM, and it will sound a bit rubbish, but at least I will hopefully be able to pick out the bits that I haven't been able to get while it's going as fast as it was at 160. There are also plugins available. I haven't got any in my system, but there are plugins available where you can isolate the center, or you can remove I know that in Sonar, you used to be able to do that, kill center, so that because typically with instruments like bass and especially deep percussion, kicks and all that sort of stuff, they're usually dead in the middle. The issue with hybrid orchestral music, or this type of music, is that the stereo feel, especially with all rules seem to be broken. So basses are off to the left and the right, basses are in stereo. There's so much percussion going on that sometimes it can be quite hard to kind of like to figure out what's going on. One thing you can do is split the stereo file into left and right, and you can isolate a left or a right. So you can just mute the right and just listen to the left channel, see what's going on in the left channel, mute the left channel, listen to what's going on in the right channel. Even though it will be like stereo, especially with reverb, you might find that some percussion will be quite heavy on one side. So that's another thing that you can do. So once you've made your notes, the next thing that you want to do is you want to start focusing on one element, and you're listening for one element all the way from the start to the finish. So for example, for some people, they might list the bass may be the one thing that they can kind of like lock in on, which is fine. I'm going to have a listen to the track. I'm going to find an element. What I tend to do is I'll tend to listen to whatever the first element, so whatever appears here, this first one here, is I'll usually lock into that first, and then I will go through all the way to the end. So that's what I'm going to do, is so you want to find one element that you can lock in on and listen for where it's placed. What it's doing, you can make those notes actually within the audio file for the particular element that you're looking at. So I'm going to have a listen to this and I'm going to pick one thing first. It's usually whatever the first sound is for me. Okay, let's do that. Okay, we're back. So the first element for me in this track was a black hole piano, and I've put it C4, so C4 plus C5, i.e. single notes in octaves. So as you can see here, all the way through here, this first part, this is what it's doing. Till we get to here, and then it does every bar, single note every bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll go through exactly the same. Exactly the same, exactly the same. Nothing changes with that one at all. It appears all the way through the track until we get to the true end. So this for me was a relatively easy one to listen out for. That was the first element. So now I'm going to have another listen and see what else it is that I can pick out. Hopefully you're not having too much difficulty with the track that you're working on. So I'm looking for element number 2. Okay. Okay, right, here we go. So element number 2 for me, again, black hole felt piano, C2 single note. So this was a note that was just midway between, actually no, this was a lower one, yeah, C2. So it's 2 octaves below C4. And it appears halfway through. And if you notice, I've put it exactly where, in terms of the bars, I've put it exactly where I heard it. So it's here and there and there, there and there, and nowhere else. So that was a relatively easy one. So let's have a look for element number 3. Okay, so element number 3 that I picked up on was the bass. I've colored it blue. What I tend to do is when I'm working on a piece, I color people color their instrumentation different ways. I color my percussion yellow, I color my piano blue, my bass blue, my strings red, my miscellaneous with things like Brahms and sound effects and pads are purple. Brass is green. Voices or choirs are red as well. So we've got a 16th note pulse bass. It just appears in the B section and again in the B section and again in the pre build up to the end, and then that's it. It doesn't appear anywhere else. Right, okay, let's have a look for the next one. Okay, right, now I'm going to start focusing on the percussion, because what I find is that the percussion is one of the most prominent things within the genre that I'm listening to. So what I'm going to do, what I've done is I'm focusing only on the percussion, and I'm only focusing on one element of the percussion at a time. So this first one, we're looking at a deep kick, which just appears at the start of this bar, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Start of this, 1, 2, 3, 4. Start of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got it on 1 and 3. And that's it. It doesn't appear anywhere else in the track. Okay, let's go for the next. So remember, I'm only focusing on percussion. I'm only focusing on percussion for now. So now I've focused specifically on the massive taiko hit. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I've called it. Could be anything. Could be a massive frame drum. I'm not sure. But that's what I'm hearing. So let's have a look. It doesn't appear in the intro at all. We get to the A section, and like I said down here, this weaker massive taiko hit in light blue. These are going, remember, you've got bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a 16 bar section. And you can see here that this massive taiko hit, from here, you've got 1, 2, and 3, and then again, 1, 2, and 3. But then it changes here, just slightly, and changes here. This is why it's really good to analyze, especially percussion, because what some of these guys, the way that they're incorporating percussion into their tracks is absolutely brilliant. From what I'm listening to, they're not samples or anything like that, or at least I don't think that they are. I believe that they're programmed. When I said before that listening to a track, like a deep dive analysis of a track, it will reveal things to you that you would never have even thought about. Certainly for me, I've learned so much over the years by just listening to other people and what they do. It's like if you're a painter and you've only got 2 colors, you can't express anything more than with 2 colors. I'm not saying 2 colors is wrong, but what I'm saying is your palette is very limited. So I won't bore you with everything, but you can see I've been very meticulous with the way, and you don't have to be at all. In fact, you could literally just have this going over the bar like that. You could just have that if you wanted to. There's no hard and fast, but I'm very finicky when it comes to the percussion because that is one of my weaknesses. And so listening to what these other guys are doing, it teaches me a lot about what I can do, what the possibilities are of what I can do. So again, B section, if you look here at this, if I try and, can you see that the B section for this taiko hit, this B section and the B section variation 1 are more or less identical. So that tells me that there's been an element of copy and paste within these 2 sections. Copying and pasting is not a bad thing at all. However, you have to be very, very careful with regards to copying and pasting and making things sound the same all the way through. I can't remember who I was watching, but they basically said there's no excuse for lazy programming. Now you can copy and paste elements, and as this track progresses, because I can hear the way this is building up, you can hear that things are then starting to be layered on top. Layering is a really important part of percussion from what I've gathered. The A and the B section for the massive taiko hit was more or less the same. Then you've got a pre-build, you've got a little bit here, or quite a bit here actually, and then you've got the true ending here. Okay, let's have a listen for another element. Right, toms. I've listened to the toms and they were really, for me, quite complicated. As it says, the percussion colors are very loose. It just shows that there's a change in the programming. So if you've got a bar of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You've got 8 hits of the toms, but you can see, or I heard, how the emphasis on the toms changed at different points during the listen through. And you can see that although there is some element of copying and pasting going on, there is a little bit of variation going on with this one. Okay, let's draw your attention to something very briefly. Have a look at the way that the toms are interacting with the taiko hits. So you can see that the taiko hits are being doubled essentially by the toms, or you can say that the toms are being doubled by the taiko hits. Either way, the percussion is building on itself, and that happens again all the way through, all the way through, all the way through. Let me zoom out and see whether there's an element of copy and paste going on, so you can actually see that, even though they're really tiny. So again, so can you see that? So yeah, there is definitely an element of copying and pasting on this particular one, and again, that is fine, provided that you do add some sort of variation. So what I'm going to do now is, instead of just showing you these individual bit by bit, I'll do the percussion first, and then I'll let you see the whole of that percussion section as it is, and then we'll talk about it from there. Here we are with all the percussion that I've listened to. So I'll just briefly go through it. So what I've also noticed in here, there was a 16th note pattern shaker, there was a taiko roll-in, there was a fizzy crash, a reverse fizzy crash, and then there was an 808 falling kick. And you can see from here how the elements of this track on the percussion side work together. So where I have, for example, this taiko roll-in, it started off at 30, you can see here 39, 4. So wherever the taiko came in, that's where I've put it, and where it ended, I've stopped it there, or else I could have extended it. If it had gone longer, I could have extended it out there, but it literally just rolled in, and then a crash came here. Now, I'm going to blitz through, and I'm going to have a listen to, I believe the strings would probably be the next place to start for me. So I'm going to have a listen to the strings, and then we're going to go from there. And I will actually go through all the strings. I'll just listen to all the strings, and I'll just do them all in one go. Can you see how the graphical side of this is actually shaping up? Well, this is what I meant by a graphical template. Okay, right. Okay, this is what the strings look like. They appear all the way through with no break. So let's just very, very briefly have a look at this. We've got a sustained cello that rises and falls in its single note. And again, it's doing the same thing. The whole of the intro is doing the same thing until it comes here. Now, notice that I haven't, anyway, we'll come to something in a minute. So, and again, so it moves up 2 tones from the root. Same thing with the cello sustained number 2. The single note plays the same as the second violin. You can, again, right click, and you can name these as you want to. Where they're missing, that's where they're obviously cut out. So I haven't heard that in this A section. This cello sus 1 and 2 just haven't appeared, and in fact they don't appear anymore. Staccato cello, staccato violin, and we've got a string ensemble, and they will run all the way through. Again, I can hear how the strings were building on top of each other. Can you see, and you can see it graphically. It starts off a bit scant, then you've got your first violin, then gets added, and then your second violin gets added, and then you've ended just on, like, I think this one single note. That's the strings. Okay, what we shall listen to next is the brass, and I'll map the brass out in exactly the same way. I'll have a listen to it. Let's just go for that. So in this track, the brass only appears in the B section and the B section variation 1 and the build towards the end. Again, noticed on here, I haven't put any descriptions in here. I've just heard trombones and French horn. And again, from here, trombone started the same as previous but louder. The French horn, same two. It's got the same 2 notes. So this is like, it's like a 2-note melody. It's not very complicated at all. But I haven't said what the melody is. What's really good is you can absolutely change this. You can create a melody. I'm very, very melodic. So I will probably, when I come to do this, I'll probably do something a lot different. And again, the trombones and the French horn appear on this build to pre to end. So what have we gone so far? We have a piano, we have bass, we have percussion, we have the strings, we have the brass. The last element which is what I haven't focused on at all, is what I call miscellaneous. Anything that's in miscellaneous for me would be sound effects, Brahms, choir, pad. Once I've had a listen and I've populated the audio tracks, I will come back. Okay. With regards to in this particular track, there weren't that many elements of sound effects at all, which opens up a realm of possibilities when I come to do this track. There was a Brahms, and then what I've got here, possible otherworldly atonal soundscape, very light and in the background. And that appeared only in the intro. We've got a falling sub Brahms that appears at this rest, and then we've got a reverse sound effect that appears only halfway through the pre-build, or just a little bit before halfway through the pre-build, which is here. And then there's a Brahms at the end, and that's it. Here is the graphical template that you'll be working from. When I analyze a piece of music and I create a template, this is the template that I'm talking about. It has all the elements of the piece of music that I was listening to, everything except what the harmonic structure of that particular track was, and if there was a melody, what that melody was. This, now, I can work from this to build something new. Hopefully you've had luck with the reference that you were working from. I will share this reference, like I said, it's in the link in the description below. I'm not going to work on this now for a fair while, because once I get rid of the audio, I need to get this song now out of my head. Maybe do 4 or 5 or 6 songs, work on them for about, because to break this down has taken roughly about 3 hours. You could do 1 a day for a week. Put those away, then the following week, do another 5, put those away, do that for a month. That's 20 tracks. By the time you come to the beginning of month 2, you can then go back to the first one. Make sure you've got rid of the audio file so you can't go back to it. And that reference will be out of your head, because if you've listened to 20 tracks and broken down and analysed 20 tracks within a month, it's just a rough idea. You could do 3 a week. That's still 12 tracks. By then, you should have had those out of your head. And if you're still finding yourself going back to track and going, oh, I know what it's all about, just put it away. Put it away for a couple of months until the reference is out of your head. Okay, so that's the walkthrough. In the next video, I will be actually composing a track using what I will call Epic Template number 1. It's the first track I worked on. I'm going to take you through the process from the very beginning to the very end. So until then, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. If you're new to this channel and you want to find out more about what it is that I'm doing, then please consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell so you know the next time I upload a video. Until next time, take care, and I will catch you all soon. Cheers.